Yeah.
He texted me. He said you guys do great. So figured you would. It's kind of crappy with no auto throttles, isn't it?
I'm used to it.
Oh, are you? You don't have any on yours?
525.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
spoiled like
Yeah.
we are.
yeah.
At the end of the day, it's still
Yes.
525, so you just push them all the way
Okay.
up.
Is that a FADEC on it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the Airbus is going to be a lot different than that, if you will.
Yeah,
So,
then his left thrust wouldn't come back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What do you
he's
mean?
getting like 70% all the way at idle in one.
Weird.
oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
It's just a sit back to note.
Yeah.
Do you guys have your charts from Memphis
No.
paper or like
We
you have
can
an
get them
iPad?
on,
Yeah, we just got to get a low vis chart going so I can kind of see. Just want to get you guys all on this. I can kind of see. We can kind of talk through what we already talked through in ground school. This is one of the reasons I go through this stuff so much in ground school, though, is so that when we get in here, you've already got a pretty good idea of what you're going to do and what you need to do. Then we can just touch on it. We don't have to sit here. We only have 30 minutes for this. We're different either. And this will be lesson 3. So man, you guys are knocking out 3 lessons in one day. It's kind of nice.
Yeah. We only have 2 days.
Yeah,
Just
tomorrow's
tomorrow's
Sunday,
lesson,
yeah. Awesome. So it's a runway safety and adverse weather. So what I'll do, did Aaron explain the D and the E? I kind of did in ground school, but once demonstrated, so you only have to see it. And like we'll do a VMCG today, minimal controllable ground speed. We're just going to show it to you. Technically, the instructor, I'm showing this to you, but I'll just have John, you, or Grant do it. And through me, I'll be like, okay, here's the rules, and then we'll do it. That's a D on, we're not, both of you aren't going to do it.
We did that with the speed. And
Yeah, things like that, exactly. And then experience, you both will do it. We're going to do V1 cuts today. Yay. Yeah, so you'll get to do some of that, right? We're also we'll spend most of our time in Memphis, then we'll go over to Reno and I'll throw you at mountains and throw big Airbus A380s at you. So we can see TAR stuff. So let's just go through this real quick. And we'll talk about some of it a little bit more in depth and other parts of it. The VMCG demo, done. We just talked about that, so you only. But we're going to start with the low vis taxi. I have you at the gate right now in Memphis at Charlie 16. If you have get your airport diagram out and pull the low vis 1200 RVR to less than 12 to 600 RVR. Pull that chart for me, if you don't mind. And I'll get it with you as well. And that low vis, let's see. And if you'll notice, we're going to 18 center, and it'll say low vis taxi routes, runway 18 center, 18, like Memphis will. So some low vis charts are at airports are different than others. I just want you to pull the RVR 1200 to 600. Just pull that chart. Okay.
And we're at.
You're at C16, which guys, it's kind of hard to see.
Yeah, we don't want to see C.
You want it to be hard. You see the terminal? It looks kind of like a upside down Y.
Yeah.
Okay. You're going to be on the east side of that field, right where that 15 is, where it says 15. And I'm going to push you out. And if you see Lima Taxiway that cuts across to the east and Kilo Taxiway and Charlie, if you look to the left, you can see Juliet. It's hard to see, but you see the lights, all the little white dots on there? That means it's a low vis taxiway. All right, and see all the runways with the dots on the runways? Those are high intensity runway lights and run lights telling us that we have the ability to take off on these runways in a low vis. And if you'll notice at Memphis, where FedEx is based, you will only see one runway that does not have lights on it, and that's 9827. Everything else, 18 and 36s, all have lights on them. Now, 9827 is not a very used runway. Memphis is a mostly north-south airport. 9827 is when crazy weather's coming through and there's big winds out of the west usually. So usually the visibility is pretty good when the wind's blowing that hard, or the weather's so bad you're not getting it anyway. So if you look at my phone right here, I can show you. You're right here.
That's a 1S. I was like, where's he seeing 15?
Oh, I'm sorry, 1S.
Yeah,
my bad.
I was an S.
Yeah, you know, my eyes are going. Yeah, 1S, sorry. So you're going to be right in this gate area, and it's just great briefing-wise. You know, if you go somewhere to an airport and you're picking up an airplane for your airline, and you know you haven't been to that gate, you're not super familiar. Get your bearings. Where am I? Because it's really easy to get from point A to point B if you know where you're starting at point A. So we're gonna be right here. What I'm gonna do is push your tail to the south. So as you push back, the tail's gonna go to the south. I'll set the sim up to do that. I got a tug connected to you and everything. It's gonna be like the real deal. Like
Right.
we're really going, okay? We are really going, but like, you know, the airlines would do. And I'll have to visit like a mile or two. Nothing big, because I want to run you through your ATP and your type right. So this stuff will give you either through whatever type of training you go through, AQP, or if you have to take a full-on type, like some airlines still do. Some do AQP, some don't, right? Yeah, it's a type right on initial. So as we push back to the south, you're going to end up kind of right there on Juliet. And so Juliet's kind of hard to see. But I'm going to taxi you up Juliet and make you take a right on Kilo, and then a left on Charlie, and you're gonna take Charlie all the way up to Charlie 7 in the low vis. And as you're taxiing out, I'll probably have you a mile or two when you push. As you start to taxi, I'm gonna drop it down to a half mile. And then when you get going a little bit, and maybe when you get to Charlie, and you're heading straight up Charlie, and you're not having to look for turns so much, you're just trying to keep your reference of where you are in this taxi, I'm gonna drop it down to 500 RVR. Now, when it went less than a half mile or 24 or 1800 RVR, it's an automatic, we gotta call dispatch to get a takeoff alternate, right? So, and as we talked about earlier, 1 mile, 2 engines or less, or well, less is gonna be a problem if you lose an engine. 2 engines, it's 1 mile still there, okay? If we lose one, it's how far the takeoff alternate needs to be. And it's cruising with 1 engine in 1 hour. Yeah, that's right.
He said 1 mile.
I'm sorry, 1 mile. 500 RVR, 2 engines, you lose one, it needs to be within 1 hour, still air, they're considering it still air, in cruise. And it's 1 engine cruise, not 2 engine cruise. How far you can go in 1 engine, right? And that would be our takeoff alternate. And then the weather has to meet the alternate requirements, right? We can't be below mins there either. So as we do that, just make sure you just make the comment on what you're already in the habit of making the comment, we need a takeoff alternate. Then I want you to do, when you get to Charlie 7, I don't care who goes in the left seat first, you guys will take turns. Today we only have 1 sim, so we're not gonna switch. But whoever starts in the left seat today, you'll start in the right seat tomorrow in sim 4. Okay, and then in sim 5. So we'll swap back and forth. The seat really doesn't matter. But what I do want you to do, the person, whoever's in the right seat, have this chart out and be, if it were me, I'd be Waze for you. This is how we would want you to do it. I'd be like, okay, John, let's say you're the captain, I'm the FO, I've got my chart out, and I'm like, hey, John, we're facing north, we're on Juliet, straight ahead, first taxiway is Kilo. Take a right on Kilo when you see it. You're gonna taxi up. And as you get close to Kilo, you're going to confirm with me verbally, we're talking about verbal confirmations, right? Hey, there's Kilo, yep, there's Kilo, you're going to turn right there, and then John, it's going to be an immediate left on Charlie. Okay, it's not a lot of room there. And see, the point of this, John, is you're taxiing. I need you heads up the whole time. I do not want you looking down, following along on the taxi route with me, because that's really easy in that low vis to get lost. So you're just verifying what I see, that you see what I said you were gonna see coming up. So I'm telling you that quick turn's coming, so you don't, if you kept going on Kilo and we missed Charlie, guess what's next? Runway center. Yeah, we're right on the runway. And what's our rule? If the stripe is yellow, stop, white, that's right, we get off. Then we stop and we ask for progressive from ATC, let them know we're stopped. So if we were ever unsure where we were, what we're going to do is go, what color is the stripe? It's yellow. We can stop and ask and tell them we're lost. Just confess and get progressive. If it's white, get off because you're on a runway. There's only white stripes on runways. All right. So then, John, just to keep you in the loop as you're taxiing, because I don't want you over there going, no, where are we? Because you can't look down, and they will try to trick you into looking down just insidiously. I'm going to say, hey, the next taxiway on the right you should see is Delta. Okay. And we better see Delta. If we don't, we check the stripe, we stop or get off, and then we confess we're lost and we get progressive taxi instructions, okay? The nice thing is we knew where we were previous when we got lost. We were at Kilo and Delta. Kilo and Charlie. And we should see Delta. If you turn it the correct way, Delta's what we should see. And as you go by that, I'm going to go, John, you're going to taxi a little bit now. You're not going to really pass anything. You'll see some remote parking on the left. Don't worry about that. You're going to see Charlie 5 next. But if you look right here, these bar, that's the ILS hold short critical area. I'm not gonna have you hold short of that today.
Okay.
Remember when we do that, when it's on the ATIS, we hold short, or if the weather is 802 or lower, that's when we use that. At a big airport like this, they're gonna tell you, okay? You could query if you wanted to, an uncontrolled field that had an ILS critical or the tower's closed, 802. All right, then I'm gonna go, Johnny, you'll see Charlie 5, and then immediately Charlie 6, and then Charlie 7. You're gonna turn around on Charlie 7, there's a hold short and stop bar there, hold there. And that's how we wanna go through this, all right, pretty easy. Once we get it, then I'll raise the vis up, and you can see how much better it is when you can see. You're like, yeah, that wasn't very complicated, but boy, it was a little bit more stressful with the vis one. Okay, so then that'll be our low vis taxi. And the other thing, when we get to Charlie 7, what I want you to do is set the parking brake, and we're not gonna do this, but this is what I want you to say you would do. We'll do it now. We talked about in class about how low can we go on takeoff. If we're Part 91, it's 0-0, whatever we want. We're not, we're gonna be 121 today. And 121, we would have to go to the airport chart, obviously, and look at our minimums. So let's do that really quick one more time, and then we're gonna jump into the next thing. And I just want you guys to verbalize this, please, when you get there and say, hey, we look, make sure we're gonna take off. So here's airport info, takeoff minimums. If we go look here, remember how we do this. I'm just gonna run through it one more time, like we did in ground school. We go over here to the airport, 10- on the index page, 10-9A, and I'd say, okay, what runway am I going off? Start on the runway in the big bold. I'm going off runway 18 center. Well, there it is, runway 18 right, 18 center, 18 left. And we start at the standard would be my suggestion. What's the standard? We are 2-engine airplanes. The standard is
1 mile.
1 mile or 5,000 RVR, exactly. However, as we said in class, what's your standard? How low can you go? Well, OpSpecs is gonna tell you that, right? You can't just make it up, you gotta have it. So is the plane qualified? Is the airport qualified? Am I qualified? Does my company allow it? That's what we're gonna do. Well, I can promise you, you're at the 121, you're gonna be down to 500 RVR. Unless you have a HUD, you might go down to 3, but today we don't have a HUD, we're gonna be 500 RVR. We're gonna jump over to that under 18 center and go, at the top, we need 2, there are gonna be 3 RVRs. 2 are required. We need at least 2 of them working. And so if one of them's out, that's okay, we can still go. All of them are controlling, just like we talked about. It's 500 RVR. So if we were 5, 4, and 5, cannot go. If we were 5 missing and 5, we can go. And then lastly, we need center line lights and high intensity runway lights. And we talked about those. We know what the center line lights look at, we know what the high intensity runway lights. Basically, the way to cover yourself, get on the runway when you get lined up and wait, and look across the runway and you see 3 things: lights, lights, lights. Both lights on the sides, lights in the center, as we talked about. It's so that you can define the edges of the runway and the center of the runway and know where you are. Okay? Awesome. So real quick, then we'll do the VMCG demo. That's a demonstration only, it's not a D&E. Now the first low vis is a D&E, but it's a D&E because hypothetically, John, if you're in the left seat, Grant's gonna be doing what I just did. He's gonna be talking through it, and that's gonna be his experience part. VMCG demo, super easy. We're gonna push the power up 50%. So if you look right here on the Airbus, on these settings, EPR settings right here, there's these little donuts. You see them right here? These little light blue, cyan blue donuts. We're going to push them to, they're directly tied to where the thrust loaders are. So if I move the thrust loaders around before I put them in a detent, those blue dots are just following around real fast. We want to put those blue dots at 50%, okay? And then we're going to wait. Don't just put them at 50 and go. A lot of people do that. We're going to 50% and we're going to wait until the green needles catch up, and it takes a while for the engines to fill up. You guys fly jets, so you know this. When they get to 50%, now you're going to go, we'll do a toga takeoff today since we're doing V1 cuts on these takeoffs. And so on the VMCG, it's a better demo. So you're going to go click, click, click. 3 soft detents all the way up to toga. That's going to give you toga. If you went up 2 clicks, that would be flex max continuous. If you went to 1, that'd be climb, and which is also where it likes to sit most of the time for cruise and all that, and the FADEC draws on that. So click, 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 set thrust. Thrust set, airspeed live, 100 knots, cross check, V1, rotate, pause, yes, 100 knots, 100 knots, say 80 if you want, it's fine. We're not an airline. I'm not holding you to that standard, okay? If you want to say 80, say 80. 80 knots, cross check, V1, rotate, positive rate, gear up. That's going to be just your call, just like normal. Then when you get through F speed, you can say flaps up. If there is an F speed, if you get through S, call slats up, and after takeoff. But what I'm going to do is you're going to get to 50%, you're going to push them all the way up, and then I'm going to pull one back, just one. We're going to show you what happens if you're not going fast enough to have aerodynamic forces on the rudder, and you don't pull the other engine back, that the airplane, you can't control it. It's going to go off the side, and let it go on the grass. I'm going to take a picture and snapshot you right back around.
Right.
Or if you're close enough and nothing broke, we'll loop back around. But it's just to show you, hey, you can't control it with rudder. You could if you wanted to grab some tiller in there, but I'm not going to let you text that.
Right.
Hopefully, this is a little negative training, but hopefully your response is to pull back the thrust on the other engine and keep yourself straight and abort the takeoff. All right, then we're going to do a low-vis takeoff, and that's a D item, and then we're going to do takeoff and climb at V2 plus 10, V2, and V2 minus 10. Now, that's all going to be kind of wrapped up in one. It's a couple of things wrapped up into one. The low-vis takeoff is 500 RVR. I'll pull you back. It's going to be low. That VMCG demo will be daylight, great vis. On the low-vis takeoff, I'm going to run you down the runway, and then V1 rotate, and right after we climb up and get positive rate gear up, I'll pull an engine back. I'm just going to pull it back to idle, all right? And we're going to climb out at 3 different speeds. We're going to climb out at V2. Let me write this down. Bring my moving on the side here. Again, remember how we talked about this. We're going to talk about 3 different things. We got V2. We're going to have V2 plus 10, and we're going to have V2 minus 10. All right, and when V2 is what? What's V2?
Safety takeoff speed.
Yeah, takeoff safety speed. That's right. That's the speed that we need to hold in the Airbus up to V2 plus 10. Other airplanes it might be V2 plus something else, but in this plane it's V2 plus 10. If your engine failed at V2 plus 15, you would reduce to V2 plus 10.
Does the Airbus have automatic pitch to V2 on the flight director?
Yes. It's called SRS. We won't get too deep into that. But it is trying to find a speed, and it's going to pitch you to that speed. I promise you, and we're going to do this first V2, this demo with the autopilot on, and it has a 3-axis autopilot, so what that means is it's going to push the rudder in for you as well. We can just sit there and watch, and it's going to fly straight out, okay? So,
It'll hold V2.
It'll hold V2 perfecly.
Without even
Well, it'll hold
selecting
V2 on if I put V2 in the flight control panel for the managed speeds.
Okay.
And what we'll do is actually go into we'll recontrol the speed, we'll pull it out, we'll make it go to V2, we'll spool it up to V2 plus 10. We probably start at V2 plus 10 because we'll be there anyway. And then all we're going to do is note the climbs. What kind of vertical speed we're getting with an engine failure at V2 plus 10, and V2 minus 10. All right, remember on your check ride, it's V2 plus or minus 5. You cannot go below V2, however. All right, so do not ever get below V2. And what we're going to see is roughly 900 to 1,000 feet per minute at V2. A little bit more than that, maybe plus another 200 feet a minute or so at V2 plus 10. It'll be a little bit better because there's less induced drag. And remember what I said in class, V2 is not the perfect climb out speed for performance. It's a mix between getting down range and getting up. I'm trying to get up because we want to miss stuff. V2 plus 10, and then we'll go to V2 minus 10 and we'll see how this drops well below what we were doing. It'd probably go to 700, maybe 800, depending on however we are. And I've got it at ISO standard 15 degrees outside right now at the field. So that's a little cool actually, or hot actually, because it feels like 600 feet, but it's close enough. All right, and remember how we talked about this, about how V2 worked, and how if this was V2 right here, and this was our speed, and this was our climb rate, if V2 was right here, and you remember on that graph how it's pretty flatlined there for a minute, then it started down again. That's V2 plus 10, and this is V2 minus 10. And we get much degraded performance at the minus 10 because too much induced drag. We got too much lift, and it's hurting us. V2 to V2 plus 10, and like I said, some Learjets are V2 plus 25, the Global's V2 plus 20, the RJ's V2 plus 15. It just depends. you're gonna see actually improved performance probably if you go to V2 plus 10. You have to stay with whatever your manufacturer has set though, right? All right, so we'll do that and we'll come out and that'll be with the autopilot on. It'll be pretty easy. We're noting the differences and why we don't want to get below V2 and why we want to be within all that performance that we did on the ground, and we fly that performance so we don't hit the mountain or the tumbleweed or the barbed wire fence or whatever's there, right? Okay, so then after we do that, we're going to do real V1 cuts. And when we do the real V1 cuts, these y'all are take turns. We'll do as many as you guys want to do pretty much, because we can get through this pretty fast. So if you want to practice more even after the lesson, fine. In fact, I've never had anyone fly because your option is you can turn the autopilot on if you want, but I've never had anybody do that. And I've been doing this for, whatever, 5, 6 years. And no one ever has turned the autopilot. They all want to hand fly it, and that's great. When we do the V2, this one, then after we get done with this, I'm going to give you the motor back, and we're going to fly the Airbus around for just a minute. Because if you try to handle this plane with like the flight controls being fly-by-wire, the way you would try to fly the Global, Grant, you're going to have a hard time because you're going to over-control the crap out of it. So after we get this little thing done, I'm gonna just let you guys fly for a second, and we're going to just be like, just put the little dot where you want it and go, and do it that way.
He's got a simulator at his house.
Oh, okay. Oh,
So
awesome.
I'd probably need it more than he
Yes.
does.
And the Airbus is an odd plane to fly in the sense
It
that
is in this
pick your
sense.
pitch, let go.
Yeah.
Pick your pain, let go.
With the Trimble
Yeah.
horizontal stab, it is, and you just pick it and let go. If I threw you an alternate law, it'd be a
Then
little
you gotta
different,
fly it. Yeah.
right? But in this scenario, we're not going to do that. And so it's just kind of stick it where you want it, and then make fine-tune adjustments. But if you do this, you're going to over-control it just like crazy. So we'll take off and climb, and we'll do some V1 cuts. Basically, right at V1, lose the engine. What I need to see is an ATP standard. You got 10 degrees, plus or minus 10 degrees on the heading. We got to hold X. Remember we talked about 200 feet within the airport boundary, 300 feet outside the boundary. And Memphis is a straight out airport. We're not doing anything special like Eagle or Aspen. We're just gonna fly runway heading. All right. And then V2 is gonna be -0 plus 5. If it happens at V2 plus 5, just hold V2 plus 5. It's fine. And if you stay in that flight director and you keep that guy in the flight director, you're not going to have any problems. The biggest issue we see in doing these in the sim, and most of the people come through here don't have jet time, but especially don't have a type rating. But the biggest thing we see is they never put in enough rudder. So remember what I told you about the Airbus and the slip skid indicator? It goes, you're going to see that little slip skid indicator that's right here, the little trapezoid. You're going to see that turn blue. It's in beta mode, and that means it's taking care of side slip. Don't worry about a half out or whatever. Stick it back in the middle. I promise you, if it's not in the middle, we're losing our heading. Repeat that. If it's not in the middle, we're losing our heading, and it happens fast. Okay, grab it as soon as you can, stop the yaw as quickly as you can, pitch up, fly out, and hold that trapezoid. If you hear me in your background, I know it might be a little overload, but if you hear me in the background saying more rudder, more rudder, more rudder, more rudder, put in more rudder. Your trapezoid's out. I'm just looking at the trapezoid and shot out to the side. Remember, it's pointing to the good engine. It's pointing to the rudder to step on. Okay? Now, the other thing I would tell you is this is a long airplane. If you yank it off the runway, you're going to tail strike it. Okay? There's nothing that says, especially on a runway as long as this one and as light as we're going to be, there's nothing that says, because V1 is going to be 147, V2 is going to, V1 is 147, VR is going to be 148, and V2 is 149. There's nothing
that close.
Yeah. There's nothing that says
Take out with V2.
There's nothing that says you have to rotate the second the other pilot says rotate. Get it stuck on the ground, get it straightened out. You don't have to go find the center line if you get off of it. Get it straight, get it tracking straight. You got a second or two. Just you can't drive it down to the end of the runway, obviously. We need 35 feet by the departure of the runway. You have to gear up. However, get it going straight, Okay, I like it, now lift off, and lift off smoothly. You have less power, we're getting away from the ground a little bit. If you yank that thing back, we're gonna strike a tail, it happens 50% of the time. Especially you always go second, right? The person who goes first strikes it almost every time. They have a higher strike incident. Because they just yank it off, and they're also used to, even a global, the Grand Flies is a 99-foot 5-inch airplane.
Yeah.
It ain't this.
Yeah.
You can unstick that thing pretty good, and you don't have to worry about the tail. That's not the case here. So, in the planes y'all have been flying, great experience. However, you're in a different plane now. So just flat off, nice and easy.
Is it 321 in the sim?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is a 320.
Okay.
So it's going to be plenty long enough to strike the tail up. But don't underdo it, don't overdo it. Just realize, hey, when I'm breaking ground here, and the SRS is going to be saying, hey, pitch up, pitch up, pitch up. Well, let the ground get a little bit away from you, then start pulling up for that V2, okay? All right, and then we're going to climb out and then put in rudder, 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 rudder. Keep it straight. There's rudder trim, I can show you where it is, but I want you to fly it with your feet, all right? And then I'm going to do this just like a check ride. When you just climb out, no fire, it won't be any emergencies like that. It's just an engine, it's going to roll back, that's all it is. All right, so as you climb out at V2, at 1,000 feet, that's going to be our acceleration altitude. At 1,000 feet, yeah, say greatest flying, grant order the altitude holder. However, don't wait for the flight director, because if John delays or is looking for it, he can't find it, because you know what to hit, you just don't know what it is because you haven't been in this plane, right? If it were in your airplane, at Bravo, Citation, yeah, 525. You know right where it was. If we're in the global, Grant would know right where it was. You're going to be looking for it here. And these buttons, not only they turn, they push and pull, right? They try to declutter it a little bit. So don't wait. If the other pilot doesn't get the altitude, look at your radio altimeter, level off at 1,000 feet, lead it. I would recommend a non-flying pilot, when you get to about 950 feet AGL and greater, get your hand up there as a reminder to help your buddy out to remember to level off. We always kind of lead a little bit. Notice that your crew, I always stick my hand up there going, okay, it's almost time, get ready. If you do it at 850 feet, you might forget. But just stick it up there about 900 feet, level off. You're gonna level off. If the flight director doesn't catch it in time, just pitch it over yourself, ignore it for a second until you get it. Speed up. When you see S speed, you're gonna be flaps slats one today. When you see S go by, you won't see F, you'll just see an S. When you accelerate past S, say slide flaps up, put the flaps up, then I'll pull the slats of the flaps in. And then when you get to green dot speed, you'll see a little green dot on the side. Just go back into the felch, you pull it and just start felching and climb out at that. At 1,500 feet, it's over. All right, now we can turn. If they gave you a turn at 800 feet, do not accept it. You will hit that. We didn't do any kind of obstacle service there. We didn't go check the OIS there. The FAA didn't. You need to be straight out. All right. And it ends at 1,500 feet. And I'll pull you back and let the other guy do it. And it happens fast. What we just talked about, it takes a lot. Goes a lot further than what we just talked about. Right. So we can do them several times. And then after we get done with that fun stuff, we're going to do a takeoff in the wind shear. All right, so I give you some good wind shear. Again, same briefing, except this time, you don't know where the wind shear is going to happen. You don't know where I set it up. I might set it up at 400 feet. I might set it up at some kind of configuration change. You don't know. Don't change. Wind shear doesn't tap you on the shoulder and say, here I come. So if you're taking off and you've been saying your call outs correctly and you see positive rate and you haven't got the wind shear warning yet, put the gear up if you want. Right, we want the gear up if we can get it up. However, if we get the wind shear warning, all configuration changes stop for the reasons we talked about. We don't put the gear up in wind shear because of the gear doors. Drag. Lots more drag, right? And we don't change flaps for the same reason. We don't want to give up lift. We don't want the airplane losing lift on any level, and that includes drag or induced from the lift. So we're going to leave it like it is. The Airbus is a beautiful thing because with the flight controls, you can just hold that flight control all aft. I mean, hold the stick fully aft, it will not stall. And remember, we can put the autopilot on, the autopilot will fly it out of the wind shear, but you want it fly, right? Full aft. We'll do a couple of those. These are wind shears you should all escape. Okay, we'll do one or two, and you want to do one that is like a 50-50 shot, we can do that too. We'll talk about extending V1 a little bit. rotate a little bit, stay on the runway a little longer, get a little more energy, and try to find. Now, if you were actually having to do that, we wouldn't want to take off into that wind shear, right? We don't want to take off into wind shear, period. But our first line of defense against wind shear is avoidance. That's right. But you have to show that you can do this, and we need to learn about it. All right, and then we have rejected takeoffs. So another sim tomorrow we're going to do landings, heavy, light, contaminated. Today today's all our takeoff. It's a lot of runway stuff, and it's all on takeoff. The V2 cuts, the VMCG, all that. Tomorrow in Sim 4, it's all on landing. Stalls on landing, heavyweight landings, heavyweight contaminated landings. But today we're going to do 3 rejected takeoffs. We'll take turns. The first one's mine through one of you. That's the demo, and then 2 experience. The first one's going to be light and dry. That's mine. That's the easy one. All right?
Of course.
We have auto brakes. All you have to do, pull the thrust levers to idle and just crack open. Don't go to full reverse or anything. Crack open the thrust reversers, let them open, and see where we stop. In fact, I'm going to take that out. Don't even do that. Just go to idle. It'll brake by itself. Let it auto brake. If you touch the brakes, you kick the auto brake off. So just let it come to a complete stop. We're going to look out the window and see our field length remaining numbers. And we're going to say, hey, look, we had, 4,800 feet left of runway when we did this abort. Then I'm going to pull you back. We're going to change our V speeds because we're going to get heavier, which is going to affect our V speeds. We're going to get heavier, and we're going to see how being heavier, and that's a lot of energy, right? And inertia that we're having to stop. We're going to see how being heavier is going to make us chew up more runway to get to V1, and then it's going to take us more runway to stop because it's more weight we're trying to stop. And that'll be heavy and dry. That'll be one of yours. Then the last one's the fun one. It's going to be heavy and contaminated, not wet, contaminated. All right, so we're going to be heavy. And you'll see the second one, the heavy one's not a huge difference between the first one. There's some difference, but it's not massive. The last one we're going to do patchy ice. And the reason I like doing patchy ice is so if you hear ice or remember that Arcam matrix we talked about braking? If you hear poor or nil, the airport closes, poor, your company will say you can't land there. All right? But I want to show you how bad it is because not only are we going to have a really, really hard time, and in this one you're going to have to use thrust reversers to stop, except it's going to create a controllability problem for you because it's patchy ice, so you'll get some traction, and then the airplane will get in the ice and start getting sideways, and then it'll grab and snap because it'll get some more traction when it gets off the little patchy ice, and then it'll hit another one. And there's 3 directions we can go. If everything goes great and we do a really good job, we'll stop on the runway. We might be pointing in the wrong direction, but we'll stop on the runway. Or we're going to go off the end of the runway if we do a good job of keeping it on the runway, or we're going to go off to the sides. We can actually skirt off to the sides because it's slick, it's ice, right? So we're going to do that, and I'm trying to...
Is that tomorrow?
No, it's today. This is all today. These rejected takeoffs.
Oh, it's a rejected takeoff.
Yeah.
This is landing.
We'll do the same thing tomorrow on landings.
Okay.
And we'll auto land every one of them. But we'll, obviously have that tomorrow. We get done with that, we're gonna go to Reno. We're not gonna fly there. I'm just gonna reposition in Reno. We're gonna take off with crosswind gusts. It's all takeoff stuff today, right? Like I said, we're gonna do a takeoff and crosswind and gusts. It'll be 20 to 29 out of Reno. It's pretty gusty. And then we're going to do a TAWS event, and then we're going to do a TCAS event. The TAWS is the terrain awareness, and the TCAS is the TCAS remover, the TARA, right? The crosswind takeoff's not a big deal. You'll have to use some rudder, but that rudder, what did the Boeing engineers say in the Airbus? That rudder is designed for one engine at operative and crosswind takeoffs and landings. That's what it's there for. It's big. We don't. And we didn't cover this in school, but we really don't, in these airplanes, put in crosswind correction with the ailerons on takeoff. Why?
You can strike the
Strike an engine.
Yeah, that's one reason. You can hit an engine when the engines are slowing. You can hit a wingtip if you're not careful. And there's one other reason. It's a performance reason.
Because it's not supposed to. They didn't.
Think about your wing, especially you on your global. There's not just ailerons helping you turn.
It's the
Bang.
ground.
The spoiler system, there's spoiler system. If you ever sat in the wing on a 7.3 or a Global or any of those, on the window with the wing and you look outside, when they turn, the aileron doesn't move very much, but these spoilers come up. We didn't do performance for spoilers on one side of the, so the rudder will handle it, I promise you. And so just use the rudder. We don't sit there and fly down there like a 172 with crosswind correction in. We don't need the or a tail dragger. We don't need the adverse yaw to keep it straight. All right, all we're doing is, all that performance we did is gone because we didn't have performance with 2 spoilers up on the left wing, okay? So down we go, we'll do that. It's pretty easy, and as soon as you take off, you're just grabbing the wind like normal. No big deal. However, here's where the big deal kind of comes. It's not normal. I have to do the TAWs, right? And I'm gonna turn you right to about a 210 heading, right off a takeoff out of 160, and I'm gonna level you at 6,000 feet. Well, Reno's like 4,500 feet. It's only about a 1,500 foot climb. Happens fast in a jet, right? It's boom, 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 we're there. And I need you to do a couple things. One, catch the level off. All right, if you follow the flight director, you could literally just stare at the flight director and you're gonna catch the level off. But it's happening so fast, a lot of people don't catch it and they keep climbing out. Don't do that. 2, we're gonna, if we don't do that, it won't accelerate to 250. I wanna get it to 250. So you're gonna be positive rate, you're up. There's S speed, flaps up, it'll be flaps 1 again. If you wanna do 2 so you can see the F, we'll do it, it's not a big deal. We go flaps up, flaps 1, flaps up, after takeoff check, level at 6, it's gonna happen fast while I'm making you turn, so I'm gonna overwork you, but you guys are flying fast airplanes, so this shouldn't, your internal clock should already be there. And then I'm gonna head you to the mountain. When we go to the mountain, you're gonna be able to see it. It's gonna be clear, I just wanna get the idea. So when we hit the mountain, go towards the mountain, we're gonna go here, terrain, right? Ignore it, terrain, this isn't normal, this is negative training again. If it was IMC or nighttime and you heard 2 low flaps, 2 low gear, when you weren't supposed to, terrain, don't sink, all that's based off that EgyptWiz, and part of that is the nav database, and part of it is the radio altimeter. It's tied into there too. And you're gonna see your radio altimeter is active. You're gonna see numbers. At 2,500 feet below, it's on. It's picking stuff up, right? And I'm aiming you right towards the highest part of the mountain. However, in our situation, we want to go, when you hear terrain, pull up, escape maneuver. Toga, 20 degrees nose up, make sure now in the Airbus, the spoilers go by themselves, but spoilers in, and they don't, you shouldn't have the spoilers on anyway, we're just gonna confirm they're in and down, and then climb out at 20 degrees nose up. Just pitch, and watch the radio altimeter. The other pilot monitoring can call out, hey, radio altimeter's 100 feet, increasing, going away, okay, it's gone. And then I'm gonna have you, so it'll go away. And then, but we're gonna be so close to the tip of the mountain, it's gonna come back. Which is why we're gonna do that. Then I'll levy at like 13 or 14,000 feet, and I'll stick some airplanes at you. All right, to get a TARA. You'll get the TA, which is the traffic advisory. Now, you've probably all seen this a lot in your airplanes, because you have to have TCAS in them. You're gonna get the terrain, get the little yellow airplane. There'll be blue, cyan and clear, and that's just me, hey, there's a reference. It'll go to yellow and say traffic. And that's telling you, hey, your proximity airplane now. Somebody's in the way, and then I'm going to get you the RA, the resolution advisory. What's the key on the resolution advisory? What do we do?
Follow vertical speed indicator.
Following what if the ATC tells you to climb and your resolution advisory says descend, you descend. You do not follow. And then, no matter what, after you do this advisory, this resolution advisory, and it's complete and you're clear, it'll say clear of conflict. Means you're out of it. Start heading back down or back up to your altitude, and be sure if the other pilot hasn't done it yet, pilot monitoring, be sure to tell them, hey, tell ATC what happened. We had a resolution advisory, we're climbing back up to our altitude, not getting, I'll make some smart aleck remark. And that'll be it, we'll be done with sim.
Cool.
Sound good?
Yep.
Any questions?
No. On the V1 cuts,
Yes.
do you set, like our college set V2, or does it just go to V2?
It'll go to V2.
So there's no setting V2?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll probably call it, but.
Yeah, you can if you want.
Yeah.
If that's your company. Like I said, we're not type rating you and we're not an airline. So we're not gonna dive too deep in the systems at all. And I can't say your call outs are wrong because we're not an airline.
They're all
Right. And they're all pretty standard.
Right.
Right. Sound good?
Yeah.
I've already got the sim set up. Why don't you guys go to the bathroom or do whatever you need to do, get a drink, and we can go jump in the sim and get this started.
All right.
Thanks.